إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل الله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهم رجالا كثيرا نساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. My topic today is the importance of Dawa. In Islam, we all know that it's everyone duty to do Dawa. Conveying the message is more important than who conveys the message. Conveying message is important than who conveys the message. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stated in one of the Sahih al-Bukhari hadith 3461, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, convey my teachings even if it were a single sentence. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, convey my teachings even if it were a single sentence. So we have to take it into consideration. So even if it, small things, you need to convey as a dawa. You need to convey this message to every one of us. To start with, we need to understand what is Islam first. Then only we can convey the message of Islam to others. If you look at that, what is Islam means, whoever submit a will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be called as Muslims, and who follow the teachings of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Kitabullah, which is Quran, is Islam. So Allah's revelation, Quran and Sunnah are the source for Islam. And we have to believe in one true God. So we have to be in a monotheistic religion. If you look at the other face of the earth, other faith in the face of the earth, there are people who have a middleman to reach their God. Say for example, in Christianity they have a pastors. In other religions they have some gurus, or somebody else will be there in the middleman. But in Islam, there is no middleman to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a Muslim want to reach out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they can pray and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. They don't need any middleman. But Islam differs from other religion. How? Allah is asking in many verses in the Quran, why don't you put your mind? Why don't you think about it? Why don't you explore and accept Islam? This is what Allah stated in the Quran in so many verses. Let me put some verses here. In Quran chapter 244, chapter 263, chapter 2219, chapter 266, 269, chapter 37, 137, 3191, 482 and so on. So many verses Allah is asking to explore Quran with our minds. Allah doesn't ask us to blindly follow Him. Allah never asks us to do following Islam blindly. Let's take one example from the Quran, chapter number 4, verse number 82. Allah says, Afala yatadabbaruna al-Quran. Afala yatadabbaruna al-Quran. Allah is saying, do they not then reflect upon the Quran? Don't you think about the Quran? Don't you think about the Quran? Allah further says, Walau kana min di ayri Allahi lawajadu fihi ihtilafan kathira. Had it been come from anybody else other than Allah, you would have seen many inconsistencies. Allah is asking us, do they not reflect upon the Quran? If it come from anybody other than Allah, people would have seen so many inconsistencies. In Islam, Allah has given one set of rules. Allah has given only one set of rules. But if you look at our parents and forefathers, they just blindly followed Islam, whatever they heard. Whatever they heard. And there are so many, contradictions. They followed many paths. But Allah is also warning this. If you follow many paths, it will deviate you from the right path. Allah says in the Quran, chapter number 6, verse number 153, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. Allah says, indeed, this is my path perfectly straight. وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. This is the path perfectly straight. Allah further says, "Fattabi'u," so follow it. Allah is asking to follow His straight path. Allah is asking us to do fattabi'u, so follow it. Allah further says, "Wala tattabi'u subula." If you follow other than Allah's way, become sabili. Dalikum wasakum bihi la'allakum tattaqun. Allah is warning us. If you do not follow follow other ways, and if you do not follow Allah's way, that will lead you away from Allah. Allah further says that this is what has commanded. He has commanded you, and you will be conscious of Allah. So Allah is asking us to follow His straight path. If you follow other than straight path and multiple paths, that will lead you away from Allah's path. And Allah is warning us. So you have to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now I would like to ask a question here to all the kids. Did you ever ask this question to your parents or forefathers or your scholars? Why do we follow Islam? When you don't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why do you have a trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why not other religions like Christianity, Judaism, or any other religion? Have you ever asked this question to your parents? You have to. Because Allah says, just like you born into Islamic family doesn't guarantee you Jannah. You have to understand from your mind what is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. If you truly understand from your mind, then only you can guarantee to get Jannah. So you have to ask this question: why do we follow Islam? Why have to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why do we have to follow Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his teachings? You all have to ask questions to get understanding of Islam and keep that in your mind. Just like that you born into Muslim family, you don't guarantee to get into Jannah. Just keep in mind. And also, here in this, in this modern day, I have heard a lot of kids are memorized the Quran and became a Hafiz. MashaAllah, that's a very great effort. The next step for all of you is to understand the Quran and meaning of the Quran in a local language and a native language. Then only you can reflect the Quran and the way of life. If you don't know the understanding the meaning of the Quran, how can you reflect in your life? You need to understand the Quran, what Allah is talking to us. Then only you can take all these findings and all these commandments and all these warnings and all the suggestions that Allah has stated in the Quran, you can apply them in your life. If you don't understand it, you are like a lost camel on a desert. Maybe to make you understand in a better way, if you have a car and if you have a yellow light came on, the gas is out of gas in your car, that in the next 100 or 200 miles there's no gas station, how do you feel? You feel like you are just lost, right? The same way, without understanding of the Quran, how can you become a Muslim and you be a Muslim to apply what Allah has stated in the Quran, what Rasulullah has taught in our hadiths? And we all know that if you look at the 50 years back or 40 years back, our parents and forefathers did not have a proper translation on their local language. It just became only 30-40 years. If you look at Tamil or any other language, maybe Urdu might have got even 100 years back. But look at the parents and forefathers, before the translation came to the picture. They just had to blindly whatever they heard from their forefathers or scholars. They did not have an opportunity to think about whether whatever they heard is correct or not. But today, if you look at this world, look at this this particular era, they've got all the translation in our hands in the form of phone, iPads, tablets, and in anywhere else. We have a Quran, we have a translation. How many of us read the translation every day to understand what Allah says? To understand how can we apply in our life? Have you ever thought about who are Maharam, who are not Maharam? If you look at the translation, only we can understand. Do you know how to do the Hajj? If you look at the translation or the understanding the teaching of Rasulullah, only you came to know that how to do Hajj. Otherwise, whatever you heard, you just simply apply them. That's not good. And also, I would like to ask one other question, we are spending more time on a worldly matter. Say for an example, I can tell you that, if you are a software engineer, if your company asks you to learn certain technology in a month, otherwise you will be fired. What do? You spend your time, you learn the technology, or you work on it within a month. That's what you do, right? But when it comes to religious matter, if you are asked to learn religious things, leave this duty to our scholars, let them learn, let them understand, let them give fatwas, then we blindly follow the fatwas. That is what we are thinking. That is totally incorrect. Because for our actions and our deeds, We are the only people who will be answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not your parents, not your forefathers, not your scholars will be questioned for your duties and your actions. So we have to understand this first. And Allah says that we have to spend so much of time to explore what Allah says in the Quran. And also, many of us thinking that if we go just follow blindly and with the majority of the people, that may be correct. That is also incorrect based on what Allah states in the Quran, chapter number 6, verse number 116. Allah says, "O Prophet, if you were to obey most of the people on the earth, they would lead you away from Allah's way." If you follow most of the people on the earth, you will be lead away from Allah's path. This can be seen in Quran, chapter number 6, verse number 116. I'm not saying this. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not say this. Allah, who created all of us, saying that we are not supposed to follow the people who are majority of the people who are doing this action. We all know that Allah forbids doing shirk, consuming alcohol, consuming haram foods, taking riba, and backbiting, and harming parent, and so on and so on. But if you look at that, there are fatwas to allow all this. There are fatwas to allow shirk by going to dargah to pray in front of the dead people. There are fatwas to take riba. There are fatwas to take even haram foods. There are fatwas to even do everything. If you look at that, why? Because people just blindly taking the authority of the religion and they just give fatwas. Allah says He is the sole authority of the religion. He doesn't give this authority to even Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This can be seen in Quran chapter 16, verse number 116. Allah says, "Wala taqulu lima tasifu al-sinatuhum katiba." Allah says, "Do not falsely declare with your tongues, wahada halalun, this is allowed, wahada haramun, this is not allowed, li taftaru ala Allahi al-katiba." Only fabricating lies against Allah. Allah further says, "Innal ladina yaftaruna ala Allahi al-katiba la yuflihun." Allah further says, "Indeed, those who fabricate lies against Allah will not succeed." Allah says, those who fabricate lies against Allah and saying this is halal and this is haram, they will not succeed. This is the duty of Allah. This is the duty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And let's understand, in Islam, even Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have any authority to change anything in Islam. In fact, so many verses in Quran has condemned and warning given to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even, in fact, I would like to give a couple of points here. We all know honey issues with Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam wives matter. And one of the wives, have a fight, and Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibit taking honey from there onwards. Then Allah has sent a warning to Rasulullah in Quran chapter 66, verse number 1. "O Prophet, why do you prohibit yourself from what Allah has lawful to you?" Allah says, "I made honey as a lawful to you. How can you prohibit by not taking honey just to please your wives?" And Allah is all forgiving and most merciful. Allah made halal and haram. Even Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam cannot change it. That's what Allah has given a warning to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam here. I want to pinpoint another example here from the Quran chapter 69, verse number 44 to 47. "Had the messenger made up something in my name," Allah says, "in our name, we would have certainly seized him by the right hand." Allah says, if this messenger made up something with Allah's name, Allah says, "I would have seized him with my right hand and served his iota." That means I will cut off his life artery. It's a stem warning to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what Allah is giving warning. In fact, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not make up anything, but Allah just giving a warning. This is my religion. None of you, even Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, cannot change anything. In that fact, how come scholars can give fatwas which are not allowed by Allah and His Rasul? Think about it. So, Islam means Wahi, Quran and Sunnah. Nobody can change anything, and nobody can add anything, and nobody can remove anything. It's Allah's sole responsibility to give halal and haram and allowed and not allowed. So this is Islam, and we all have to understand this. Now let's jump into how to do Dawa. Dawa doesn't mean that you have to graduate from so and so degree and you need to learn from Islamic degree and all. Even if you know a simple message, like I said in Sahih Bukhari 3461, if you know the teaching of Rasulullah, even if it were a single sentence, you can convey the message. Let's take an example. If you know a Sahih Hadith stated in Sunan Nasai 1091, if you see a people when they go to sujood, if they put the knees first before they put the hand, tell the people that Rasulullah did not teach like that. You had to put your hands first, then put the knees second. This is how you should do the prostrate, the sujood. This can be seen in Sunan Nasai 1091. If you see some people put their knee first before the hand, tell them that's not correct. You have to put your hands first, then put the knee first. Rasulullah says that do not sit like a camel. This is a Sahih Hadith. Conveying a Sahih Hadith is a Dawa. Another set of Dawa that what you can do is when you hear non-authentic Hadith stated by someone, when it is done, you can go to them and correct it. Brother, you have stated so and so Hadith, that is incorrect because of so and so reason. So let's take an example. In Trimidi 2905, this can be seen in Trimidi 2905. Rasulullah stated that whoever reads and memorizing the Quran or become a Hafiz can rescue 10 people from the family from hellfire to the Jannah. This can be seen in Tirmidhi 2005. If you look at the Hadith, Tirmidhi himself said one of the narrators, Hafiz bin Sulaiman, is a weak narrator. So this is a Daif Hadith. This is a Daif Hadith. This is a non-authentic Hadith. So when you heard such a Hadith, you have to let them know this is incorrect. The understanding of this Hadith is incorrect because of one of the weak narrators. And also I would like to encourage all the young kids here to do Dawa on some of the important topics like, suicide, LGBTQ, feminism, Islamophobia, mental illness, anxiety, so many things. There are why these things are not allowed in Islam. So you kids have understanding of how the recent and modern world is. So you can take those topics and explore those topics and convey the message to all other kids in your school or in your gatherings or in your community. This is a very good idea for you to take the the Dawa to the next level and give the message of peace to all other people. Let's make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get the understanding of Islam and spread the message of peace to all other kids. Wa alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.